Hello, today's lesson is going to be about subjunctives in Spanish. So, subjunctives. So we're going to go over the present tense of the subjunctive mood. So today's agenda is going to be a short introduction of what the subjunctive mood is, then when we use them, and lastly, we're going to conjugate them and look at some examples. So the introduction. First thing is that subjunctive cannot exist alone. And that's because the subjunctive is a mood. It's not a tense. It's not the tense like the present tense or the future tense or the preterite tense. So you should always go with something else, and it goes after the word que normally. Okay? So que means that in English. So for example, this is a sentence that we need to use subjunctives. So it says, Él quiere que yo estudie. So he wants that I study. So the first part, Él quiere, is the main clause. So that's like the main verb. And then the second part, yo estudie, is the dependent clause. And that comes after the word que. So this is an example of when we use subjunctives. So, but when do we exactly use subjunctives? And we use them in situations of doubt, desire, emotion, what is possible, and after certain expressions. Okay, so let's go over some examples. So it says, I know that he eats fruits. Is that any of the doubt, desire, wish, emotions, or what is possible? Well, in this case, it's just a fact. I know that he eats fruits, so we do not need to use the subjunctive mood. Okay? Next, it is important that we wash our hands. In this case, we do need to use the subjunctive because it is important. That is one of the expressions. Okay, that's one of the impersonal expressions that we need to use subjunctives for. So this is a list of some of the impersonal expressions. It says, it is good that, it is bad that, it is impossible, it is important, it is possible, it is doubtful, and so on. So in these cases, we do need to use the subjunctive tense. Last example, I wish we could go to school. So I wish, that's a desire. So of course, we need to use the subjunctive. Conjugations. So let's look at the differences of the present indicative and the present subjunctive. So for the present indicative, which is one of the first tenses you learned in school, we have yo, tú, él, nosotros, and ellos. And people remember very well that for yo, it always ends with o. However, when we look at the present subjunctive, that's not the case. We have a different ending. So for the er verb, we have an ending with e, and for the er and ir verb, those are the same. We have an ending of a. Well, we do see that for ar and er/ir, they kind of switched. They're kind of like the opposite. For the ar, it ends with e. However, for the er and ir, it ends with a. So that's like a little tip. So let's look at the steps. First step, we need to conjugate the verb into the present tense of yo. Okay? Then we take out the o in the end. And lastly, we add the opposite. So we add the e to an ar verb, or we add an a to the er verb. So let's look at an example. I hope she talks to me. So that's a subjunctive because I'm hoping she talks to me. It's a desire, it's a wish. So when I translate that into Spanish, it's yo espero que ella me blank. So the part after que, that's the part where we need to add the subjunctive mood. So ella me talks to me. So what's to talk in Spanish? And that's hablar. Okay, so let's solve this. So to talk is hablar, and when we conjugate that into the yo present tense, it's hablo. Yo hablo. Second step, take out the o. So it becomes habl. So that's the stem of this verb. And in the last step, we add in the opposite. So it was an AR verb. So we need to add the E at the end. So it becomes hable. So when we complete the sentence, it becomes espero que ella me hable. So these are the conjugations for the subjunctive tense. So for yo, it was just add the E for the AR verb, and then add the S for the do. Then for el, it's just hemos, and en. Very similar to the present tense. So an example, the verb caminar. So caminar is to walk. So when we conjugate that into the subjunctive, it's going to be yo camine, tú camines, él camine, nosotros caminemos, ellos caminen. And for the ER verb, it should be comer. Okay? So it's kind of like the opposite. So let's go over some examples and translate them. So I know that he eats fruits. Well, we do know that's not a subjunctive. And when we translate that into Spanish, that's going to be, I know that he eats fruits. Okay? Yo sé, I know, que él come frutas. The eat part, the come part, that's just the regular present tense. We didn't change that into the subjunctive mood because we didn't need to. Okay? So to eat is comer. So he eats, or él come. That's just the regular present tense, and we didn't change that into the present tense, subjunctive tense. Next example. It is important that we wash our hands. In this case, we do need to use the subjunctive. So it is important. Es importante that we wash our hands. Que lavemos las manos. To wash is lavar. It's an AR verb. Lavar. So we need to put the opposite, which is E. So it becomes lavemos. Okay? That's it. Thank you. And if you have any questions, comment below. And that's it.